12-year-old Tommy stood by the tall window in the church, watching people arrive for his father's wedding. His dad, Mark, was getting married today to a woman named Cynthia. Tommy wore a new suit that felt stiff and uncomfortable. He pulled at his tie, wishing he could take it off. Tommy's mom died 3 years ago. After that, it was just him and his dad. They were sad for a long time, but they took care of each other. Tommy learned to cook simple meals. His dad learned to do laundry without turning everything pink. They were doing okay, just the two of them. Then 8 months ago, his dad met Cynthia at a work party. She had long blonde hair and always wore red lipstick. When she smiled, her teeth looked very white against the bright red. Tommy thought she looked like a shark when she smiled. At first, Cynthia was nice to Tommy. She brought him gifts and took him for ice cream. But Tommy noticed something strange. Cynthia only acted nice when his dad was watching. When his dad left the room, her smile would drop. Her eyes would turn cold. She would check her phone or sigh loudly, like spending time with Tommy was boring her. Once, Tommy heard her talking on the phone late at night. "Don't worry," she had whispered. "After the wedding, everything will change." Her voice sounded different then, harder, meaner. Tommy tried to tell his dad about this, but his dad just laughed. "She's nervous about the wedding, buddy," his dad said. "And maybe you're a little nervous about having someone new in our family. That's normal. You'll get used to each other." But Tommy didn't think that was it. He had a bad feeling about Cynthia that wouldn't go away. Now, on the wedding day, Tommy watched as Cynthia arrived at the church in a separate car. She wasn't supposed to see his dad before the ceremony. That was the tradition. Tommy saw her getting out of the car, already in her white dress. A tall man with dark hair helped her out of the car. Tommy had never seen this man before. The man handed Cynthia a small bag. They talked for a minute, their heads close together. Then the man kissed Cynthia on the cheek before driving away quickly. Tommy felt his stomach twist into a knot. Who was that man? Why was he kissing the woman who was about to marry his dad? Tommy wanted to run outside and ask Cynthia, but his Uncle Joe called him back into the church. "Come on, Tommy. We need to get you ready. You've got an important job today, remember." Tommy was the ring bearer. He had to carry the rings down the aisle on a small pillow. His dad had told him it was a very important job. "You're the keeper of the rings until the big moment," his dad had said with a wink. The church filled up with people. Tommy's aunts, uncles, and cousins. His dad's friends from work. Some people Tommy didn't know, who must be Cynthia's family. Tommy looked for the man who had dropped Cynthia off, but didn't see him anywhere. When the music started, Tommy took his place at the back of the church. His dad stood at the front, looking happy and nervous. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle one by one in their blue dresses. Then it was Tommy's turn. He walked slowly, carefully holding the pillow with the rings. His dad gave him a big smile and a thumbs up. Tommy tried to smile back, but the knot in his stomach was getting tighter. Then everyone stood up as Cynthia appeared at the back of the church. She looked beautiful in her white dress, but Tommy could only think about the man who had kissed her. As Cynthia walked down the aisle toward his dad, Tommy noticed something else strange. The small bag the man had given her was now tucked into the flowers she was carrying. What was in that bag? And why was it so important that she needed it during the wedding? Tommy knew something wasn't right. But what could a 12-year-old boy do to stop a wedding that was already starting? The wedding went on as planned. Tommy stood near his dad, watching as the priest talked about love and trust. His eyes kept moving to the small bag hidden in Cynthia's flowers. No one else seemed to notice it. When it was time to exchange rings, Tommy handed over the pillow. His dad gave him a quick pat on the shoulder. After the ceremony, everyone went to the big hall next to the church for the party. There was cake, music, and dancing. Adults kept coming up to Tommy, pinching his cheeks and telling him how handsome he looked in his suit. Tommy just nodded and smiled, but his mind was somewhere else. He needed to find out what was in that bag. Tommy watched Cynthia closely. She never let the bag out of her sight. When she changed from her big wedding dress into a simpler white dress for the party, she took the bag with her. When she danced with Tommy's dad, the bag was tucked into a pocket in her dress. Something important was in there, and Tommy was going to find out what it was. His chance came during dinner. Cynthia had excused herself to go to the bathroom. Tommy saw her put the bag down next to her plate. He waited until his dad was busy talking to Uncle Joe. Then he walked over to Cynthia's seat like he was just passing by. Quick as a flash, he grabbed the bag and slipped it into his pocket. Tommy hurried to the empty hallway outside the hall. His heart was beating fast. He opened the bag and found a small bottle of pills, a folded piece of paper, and a cell phone he had never seen before. Tommy opened the paper. It was a bank statement with his dad's name on it. All of his dad's money was listed there. It was a lot of money. Why did Cynthia have this? Tommy turned on the cell phone. It asked for a password. He tried a few numbers but couldn't unlock it. Then he looked more closely at the pill bottle. The label had been removed, but there was still a small warning sticker that said, "May cause drowsiness. Do not drive or operate machinery." Tommy's hands started to shake. Why would Cynthia need these pills today, at the wedding? Why did she have his dad's bank statement? And who was she talking to on this secret phone? Suddenly, he heard footsteps. Tommy quickly put everything back in the bag and hid behind a large plant. Cynthia walked into the hallway, looking angry. She went straight to where her seat would be in the hall, then came back out, searching around with panic on her face. Looking for this. A deep voice spoke from the other end of the hallway. It was the same man Tommy had seen dropping Cynthia off at the church. He was holding up another small bag, just like the one Tommy had taken. "James, what are you doing here? Someone might see you," Cynthia whispered loudly. The man laughed. "Relax. Nobody knows who I am. I just came to make sure everything is going according to plan." "Did you put the pills in his drink yet?" Cynthia shook her head. "I was about to, but my bag is gone. I had it at the table, and now it's not there." The man named James looked angry. "Find it. We've been planning this for too long to mess up now. Once he takes those pills, he'll sign whatever you put in front of him. We get his signature on those papers, and half his money is ours." "I know the plan," Cynthia snapped, "but someone took my bag. It has to be here somewhere." Tommy felt cold all over. They were planning to drug his dad and trick him into signing something. He had to warn his dad, but who would believe him? He was just a kid, and this was his dad's wedding day. Everyone would think he was making up stories because he didn't want his dad to have a new wife. Tommy looked down at the bag in his hands. Now he had proof, but he needed to be smart about how he used it. As Cynthia and James continued to argue in hushed voices, Tommy slipped away, clutching the bag tightly. He had to find someone who would help him, someone who would believe him. Tommy ran back to the reception hall, the bag clutched tightly in his hand. He needed to find someone who would listen to him, someone who would believe him. His eyes scanned the room. Most adults were dancing or eating. His dad was sitting at the main table, laughing with some friends. Tommy couldn't just go up to him with this. Not yet. Then he spotted Aunt Sarah, his mom's sister. She had always been kind to Tommy, and she was smart too. She worked as a police officer in the next town over. If anyone would know what to do, it would be her. Tommy made his way across the crowded room to where Aunt Sarah was sitting alone, watching the dancers. She smiled when she saw him. "There's my favorite nephew," she said, making room for him to sit. "Having fun at your dad's big day." Tommy shook his head. "Aunt Sarah, I need your help. It's really important." Aunt Sarah's smile faded when she saw how serious Tommy looked. "What's wrong, buddy?" Tommy pulled her to a quiet corner and showed her the bag. "I found this. It belongs to Cynthia. There's pills in here and a paper with Dad's bank accounts. And a phone that's not hers." Aunt Sarah frowned as she looked at the items. "Where did you get this, Tommy?" "I took it from her at dinner. But that's not all." Tommy quickly told her about seeing the man drop off Cynthia, about the conversation he had just overheard in the hallway, and about their plan to drug his dad. Aunt Sarah's face grew more serious as Tommy spoke. She checked the pill bottle carefully. These look like sleeping pills, but the label's been removed. That's not a good sign. She turned on the phone, which also asked her for a password. We can't get in without the code, she said. Then she looked at the bank statement. This is recent. It shows all your dad's accounts and how much money he has. Tommy, I think you're right to be worried. What do we do? Tommy asked. Dad won't believe me. He loves Cynthia. Aunt Sarah thought for a moment. We need more proof. And we need to make sure your dad doesn't drink anything Cynthia gives him. She reached into her purse and pulled out her own phone. I'm going to call my partner at the police department. He can run a check on this James person and on Cynthia too. While Aunt Sarah made her call in the quiet corner, Tommy kept an eye on his dad and Cynthia. He saw Cynthia return to the hall, still looking upset. She whispered something to a waiter, who nodded and walked away. Aunt Sarah finished her call and turned to Tommy. My partner is checking them out now. He'll call back soon. Meanwhile, we need to stay close to your dad. They walked over to the main table where Tommy's dad was sitting. Cynthia had just sat down next to him, smiling her shark smile again. In front of Tommy's dad was a new glass of champagne that hadn't been there before. Mark, Aunt Sarah said brightly, what a beautiful wedding. Can I steal you for a quick dance? For old time's sake. Tommy's dad looked surprised but pleased. Sure, Sarah. I didn't think you even liked dancing. He stood up, leaving the champagne glass untouched. As they moved to the dance floor, Tommy stayed at the table, sitting in his dad's empty chair. Cynthia glared at him. Shouldn't you be playing with the other kids? She asked coldly. Tommy shrugged. I'm tired. I think I'll just sit here with my dad's drink and wait for him. Cynthia's eyes flashed with anger. She reached for the glass. I'll hold that for him. Tommy was faster. He grabbed the glass and accidentally on purpose knocked it over. The champagne spilled across the white tablecloth. Oops, Tommy said, not sounding sorry at all. I guess Dad will need a new drink. Cynthia stood up, her face red with anger. You little brat. You did that on purpose. People at nearby tables turned to look. Tommy stared right back at Cynthia. Maybe I did. Maybe I know what you put in it. Cynthia's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, Tommy said. And I think you should know that my Aunt Sarah is a police officer. And she's very interested in you and your friend James. Cynthia's face turned white as a sheet. She grabbed Tommy's arm and pulled him away from the table toward a quiet corner. Her nails dug into his skin. Listen to me, you little troublemaker, she hissed. You don't know what you're talking about. You're making up stories because you don't want your dad to be happy. Tommy pulled his arm free. I'm not making anything up. I heard you and James talking. I know about the pills and the plan to take Dad's money. Cynthia's fake smile returned, but her eyes were cold. Who's going to believe you? A sad little boy who misses his mommy and wants to ruin his father's wedding day. You have no proof. Yes, I do, Tommy said, patting his pocket where he had put the bag. And my Aunt Sarah has it now. Panic flashed across Cynthia's face. She looked around the room and spotted James standing near the door, watching them. She gave him a small nod. James started walking toward them. Tommy felt scared. He needed to get back to Aunt Sarah. He turned to run, but Cynthia grabbed his arm again. Give me that bag, she demanded. It's mine, and you stole it. Let go of him. Aunt Sarah's voice was calm but firm. She had finished dancing with Tommy's dad and was now standing behind Cynthia. Now, Cynthia let go of Tommy's arm and turned to face Aunt Sarah. Her fake smile was back. We were just talking, Cynthia said sweetly. Tommy seems upset today. Kids can find weddings difficult, you know. Is that why you were planning to drug his father? Aunt Sarah asked quietly. Cynthia's smile disappeared. I don't know what you're talking about. James had reached them now. He stood next to Cynthia, trying to look casual. Everything okay here, Cyn? Aunt Sarah looked at James with a hard stare. James Wilson, I presume. My partner at the police department just sent me some very interesting information about you. Multiple fraud charges in 3 different states. Currently wanted for questioning about a scam involving an elderly widow last year. James took a step back. You've got the wrong guy. My name isn't James. Save it, Aunt Sarah said. She held up her phone, showing a picture of James on the screen. Facial recognition is a wonderful thing. And guess what? My partner is on his way here right now with a few officers. Tawny's dad walked up to the group, looking confused. What's going on? Sarah, why are you showing pictures to my wife's friend? Dad, Tommy said urgently. Cynthia and this man were planning to hurt you. They wanted to drug you and take your money. Mark looked at his son in shock, then at Cynthia. What is he talking about? Cynthia laughed, but it sounded forced. It's nonsense, honey. Tommy's been difficult all day. He even spilled your drink on purpose. Because you put pills in it, Tommy said loudly. Several guests turned to look. The music seemed to get quieter. Mark, you can't believe this, Cynthia said. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Sarah. Mark looked at his sister-in-law. What's happening? Aunt Sarah showed him the pill bottle and the bank statement. Tommy found these in Cynthia's bag, and I just confirmed that this man has a history of romance scams, targeting people with money. Mark stared at the items, then at Cynthia and James. His face showed shock, then hurt, then anger. Is this true? He asked Cynthia. Before she could answer, the doors to the hall opened. 2 police officers walked in, followed by a man in plain clothes that Aunt Sarah seemed to recognize. James turned to run. He pushed past an old lady, knocking her into a table. One of the police officers ran after him. Cynthia looked trapped. Her eyes darted around, looking for an escape. Dad, Tommy said, taking his father's hand. I'm sorry. I didn't want to ruin your wedding, but I didn't want them to hurt you either. Mark squeezed Tommy's hand. His voice was shaky when he spoke. You didn't ruin anything, son. You saved me. The wedding reception turned into a very different kind of gathering. The police officers took Cynthia to a quiet room to ask her questions. The officer who chased James came back, breathing hard. He had caught James trying to drive away in the parking lot. Guests whispered to each other, trying to understand what was happening. Tommy's dad sat at an empty table, his head in his hands. Tommy sat next to him, not sure what to say. Aunt Sarah talked to her police partner, then came over to Tommy and his dad. They're taking Cynthia and James to the station, she said. They found more evidence in James's car. Papers with your signature, Mark. But you never signed them. They were practicing my signature, Mark said quietly. To steal from me. Yes, and there were other papers too. Plans to sell your house, empty your bank accounts, and disappear. Aunt Sarah put her hand on her brother-in-law's shoulder. I'm so sorry, Mark. How did I not see it? Mark asked, his voice full of pain. How could I be so blind? She was very good at lying, Aunt Sarah said. People like her and James do this for a living. They find someone with money who is lonely and trick them. Mark looked at Tommy. But you saw through her, right from the start. Tommy shrugged. She was different when you weren't around. Mean, and she never looked at me the way Mom used to. Mark pulled Tommy into a tight hug. You're the bravest, smartest kid in the world. You saved me from making a terrible mistake. One of the police officers came over to them. We need you both to come to the station tomorrow to make statements, he said. But for now, you're free to go home. Mark nodded. What about all the guests? Uncle Joe is telling everyone the party is over, Aunt Sarah said. He's explaining that there was a problem with the bride. That's one way to put it, Mark said with a sad laugh. They went outside to the parking lot. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Tommy looked at his dad, worried about how sad he seemed. "I'm really sorry, Dad," Tommy said. "I know you loved her." Mark shook his head. "I loved who I thought she was, not who she really was." He took a deep breath. "I guess it's back to just you and me, buddy." "That's not so bad," Tommy said. "We were doing okay before, right?" Mark smiled a little. "Right. We make a good team." He looked back at the church where he had gotten married just hours ago. "This is not how I pictured this day ending." "Me neither," Tommy admitted. Aunt Sarah came up to them. "Why don't you two come stay at my place tonight? I don't think you want to go home yet. I can make hot chocolate, and we can watch a movie or something." "That sounds nice," Mark said. "What do you think, Tommy? Can we get pizza too?" Tommy asked. Mark and Aunt Sarah both laughed. It was the first real laugh Tommy had heard from his dad all day. "Yes, we can get pizza," Aunt Sarah said, "with extra cheese." As they walked to Aunt Sarah's car, Tommy felt both sad and relieved. He was sad that his dad was hurt, but relieved that Cynthia and her plan were stopped. He knew his dad would be sad for a while, but they would be okay. They had each other. In the car, Tommy's dad put his arm around him. "I'm going to listen to you more from now on," he said. "You're smarter than most grown-ups I know." "Even Aunt Sarah?" Tommy asked with a small smile. "Well, maybe not Aunt Sarah," Mark said, looking at his sister-in-law with gratitude. "She's pretty smart too." "The Davies family is full of smart people," Aunt Sarah said, starting the car. "Your mom would be so proud of you, Tommy. So proud." Tommy felt warm inside at the mention of his mom. He liked to think she was watching over them somehow. And maybe, in a way, she had helped him see the truth about Cynthia when no one else could. The next morning, Tommy woke up on Aunt Sarah's couch. For a moment, he forgot everything that had happened. Then it all came rushing back. The wedding, Cynthia's plan, the police. He sat up and looked around. His dad was still asleep in the armchair nearby. Tommy got up quietly and went to the kitchen. Aunt Sarah was already there, making coffee. "Morning, hero," she said with a smile. "Sleep okay?" Tommy nodded. "Is Dad going to be okay?" Aunt Sarah poured orange juice into a glass and handed it to Tommy. "Yes, but it might take some time. He's hurt and embarrassed right now." "Embarrassed?" Tommy asked. "Why? He didn't do anything wrong." "Adults are funny that way," Aunt Sarah explained. "We feel bad when we make mistakes, especially big ones. Your dad thought he knew Cynthia, but he didn't. That's hard for him to accept." They heard movement from the living room. Mark walked into the kitchen, his hair messy and his eyes tired. "Coffee?" Aunt Sarah offered, holding out a mug. "Please," Mark said, taking it gratefully. He sat down at the table next to Tommy. "We have to go to the police station this morning." "I know," Tommy said. "What will happen to Cynthia and James?" Mark sipped his coffee before answering. "They'll probably go to jail." Aunt Sarah's partner called earlier. "They found evidence that Cynthia and James have done this before, to other people." Tommy's eyes widened. "Really? They tricked other people too?" Aunt Sarah nodded. 3 other men in the last 2 years. All of them were single dads with money. "How did they pick Dad?" Tommy asked. Mark looked sad. "Remember that charity event I went to for work? Cynthia was working there as a volunteer. Now the police think she was actually looking for her next target." "That's where you met her," Tommy remembered. "You said she was nice to you." "She was very nice," Mark agreed. "And she seemed interested in everything about me. Now I know why." After breakfast, they drove to the police station. It was a big building made of red brick. Inside, it was busy with officers walking around and phones ringing. A tall policeman named Detective Miller took them to a small room with a table and chairs. He asked Tommy to tell him everything he had seen and heard. Tommy told the story from the beginning. how Cynthia acted different when his dad wasn't around, the man dropping her off at the wedding, finding the bag with the pills and bank statement, and hearing their plan. Detective Miller wrote everything down. He seemed impressed by Tommy's memory for details. "You'd make a good detective," he told Tommy with a smile. Next, Mark had to answer questions. Tommy waited outside with Aunt Sarah. "What will happen to the house Cynthia and Dad bought?" Tommy asked. His dad and Cynthia had put money down on a new house just 2 weeks ago. They were supposed to move in after the honeymoon. "Your dad can get his money back," Aunt Sarah explained. "And you two can stay in your old house." Tommy was relieved. He liked their house. It had been his home his whole life. It was where he had memories of his mom. After an hour, Mark came out of the room. He looked tired but also lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. "All done," he told them. "Detective Miller says they have more than enough evidence to charge both of them. It's a solid case." As they walked out of the police station, a reporter and photographer were waiting outside. The story had somehow reached the local news. "Excuse me," the reporter said, stepping in front of them. "Is it true that your son uncovered a plot to drug and rob you on your wedding day?" Mark put his arm around Tommy's shoulders. "Yes, it is. My son is the bravest, smartest person I know. Now please excuse us. We've had a long couple of days." The reporter tried to ask more questions, but Mark guided Tommy and Aunt Sarah to the car. As they drove away, Tommy saw the photographer taking pictures. "Dad?" Tommy asked. "Are we going to be in the newspaper?" "Probably," Mark said. "Is that okay with you?" Tommy thought about it. "I guess so. Maybe it will help other people be more careful about who they trust." The story of Tommy and his father was in the newspaper the next day. The headline read, "Boy Hero Stops Wedding Day Fraud." There was a picture of Tommy and his dad leaving the police station. Tommy felt strange seeing himself in the paper. At school on Monday, everyone knew about what had happened. Kids he barely talked to came up to him, asking questions. Teachers smiled at him in the hallway. The principal even called him to her office to tell him how proud the school was of him. "It's weird," Tommy told his best friend Zach at lunch. "I didn't do anything special. I just knew something was wrong with Cynthia." "You saved your dad from losing all his money," Zach said. "That's pretty special." Tommy poked at his sandwich. "I guess so. But now Dad is sad all the time. He hardly talks at home. My mom says it takes time to get over being hurt by someone," Zach said. His parents had divorced last year. "It gets better, though." That evening, Tommy found his dad sitting on the back porch, looking at old photo albums. There were pictures of Tommy's mom in them. She had been gone for 3 years now, but sometimes it still felt like yesterday to Tommy. "Can I sit with you?" Tommy asked. His dad nodded and made room on the step, just looking at some old pictures. Tommy looked at a photo of his mom and dad on their wedding day. They looked so happy. "Your wedding with Mom was better than the one with Cynthia," he said. His dad laughed a little. "Yes, it definitely was. No police officers at that one." They sat quietly for a while. Then his dad closed the album and turned to Tommy. "I'm sorry I've been so quiet lately," he said. "I've been thinking a lot." "About Cynthia?" Tommy asked. "About her. About your mom. About us." Mark put his arm around Tommy. "I was so eager to have someone in my life again that I didn't think carefully enough. I wanted you to have a mother figure, and I wanted company for myself. But I didn't pay attention to the warning signs." "It's not your fault, Dad," Tommy said. "Aunt Sarah says people like Cynthia are good at tricking others. She's right, but I still should have been more careful." Mark looked at Tommy. "And I should have listened to you. You saw things I didn't see." "Because she didn't hide her real self from me," Tommy said. "She didn't care what I thought." "That was her big mistake," Mark said with a smile. "Not caring what the smartest kid in the world thought." Tommy felt his face get warm. "I'm not the smartest kid in the world." "You're smart enough for me. his dad said, giving him a side hug. The phone rang inside the house. Mark went to answer it while Tommy stayed on the porch. He looked up at the stars that were just starting to appear in the evening sky. His mom used to tell him that stars were like eyes watching over people they loved. He wondered if she had been watching out for them through all of this. His dad came back outside, looking surprised. "That was a reporter from the city news," he said. "They want to interview us for a special story about fraud prevention. They think our experience could help other people avoid similar situations." "Do we have to?" Tommy asked. He wasn't sure he wanted more attention. "No, we don't have to," his dad said. "It's completely up to us." Tommy thought about it. Aunt Sarah said there were other men that Cynthia and James tricked. Maybe there are more people like them out there, tricking other families. His dad nodded. "Probably." "Then maybe we should do the interview," Tommy said, "so other kids know they should speak up if they see something wrong." Mark smiled at his son, looking proud. "You know what? You're right. We'll do it together." Tommy felt good about that decision. Maybe something good could come from their bad experience after all. His dad seemed more like himself now, making plans and looking forward. As they went back inside for dinner, Tommy felt hopeful for the first time since the wedding day. They would be okay. It was just the two of them again, but that was more than enough. A week later, Tommy and his dad sat in the studio of the city news. Bright lights shone on them. A woman named Linda Mercer sat across from them with a microphone. She was the reporter who wanted to tell their story. "We're on in 3, 2, 1. A man behind the camera counted down. Then he pointed at Linda. "Good evening, viewers. I'm Linda Mercer with a special report on wedding day fraud." Linda smiled at the camera. "With me tonight are Mark Davies and his 12-year-old son Tommy, who uncovered a shocking plot on what should have been a happy day." Tommy felt nervous with the camera pointed at them. His dad looked nervous too, but he answered Linda's questions clearly. He explained how he met Cynthia, how they dated for 8 months, and how he thought she was the perfect match for him. "When did you first feel something was wrong, Tommy?" Linda asked, turning to him. Tommy took a deep breath. "Almost right away. Cynthia was different when my dad wasn't around. She didn't smile the same way. She didn't care about the things I said. Sometimes she would be on her phone and whisper. And on the wedding day, you made a discovery," Linda prompted. Tommy nodded and told the story of seeing the man drop off Cynthia, finding the bag with the pills, and overhearing their plan. He tried to use simple words so that other kids watching would understand. "That was very brave," Linda said. "Were you scared to speak up?" "Yes," Tommy admitted. "I thought maybe no one would believe me. Grown-ups sometimes don't listen to kids." "But your Aunt Sarah listened," Linda said. "She's a police officer. She knows when people are telling the truth." Tommy looked at his dad. "And my dad listened too when I showed him the proof." Mark put his hand on Tommy's shoulder. "I should have listened sooner. Tommy tried to tell me something was off about Cynthia, but I didn't want to hear it." Linda turned to the camera. "This story has a lesson for everyone. Children often see things adults miss. They notice when someone isn't being real." After the interview, Tommy and his dad went for ice cream. It had become their tradition after talking about the wedding day fraud. Each time they talked about it, it got a little easier. "You did great on TV," Mark told his son. "You explained everything so well." Tommy licked his chocolate cone. "Do you think other people will be helped by our story?" "I'm sure of it," Mark said. "Detective Miller told me yesterday that after our newspaper story, 2 other men came forward. They had met Cynthia and James too, but got suspicious before anything happened." Tommy felt good hearing that. Maybe their bad experience was already helping others. When they got home, the phone was ringing. Mark answered it while Tommy went to feed his fish. "That was Principal Garcia," Mark said when he hung up. "She wants you to speak at a school assembly about trusting your instincts and speaking up when something seems wrong. What do you think about that?" Tommy was surprised. "Me? Talk in front of the whole school? "You don't have to if you don't want to," his dad assured him. Tommy thought about it. A month ago, he would have said no right away. He had always been pretty quiet at school. But something had changed inside him since the wedding day. He felt stronger now, more confident. "I think I'll do it," he decided. "If it helps other kids speak up when they see something wrong." Mark smiled. "I'm so proud of you, Tommy. You know that, right?" Tommy nodded. He did know. His dad told him all the time now. That night, Tommy had trouble falling asleep, but it wasn't because he was worried. For the first time in a long time, he was excited about what might happen next. Their life hadn't turned out the way they expected, but maybe it was going to be even better than they imagined. He looked out his window at the stars. "Thanks, Mom," he whispered, "for helping me see the truth." 6 months had passed since the wedding day that wasn't really a wedding day. Tommy stood in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to fix his tie. Today was a big day. He was giving his speech at the school assembly. His dad walked in and helped him with the tie. "Nervous?" Tommy nodded. "A little. What if I forget what to say?" "You won't," his dad said. "But even if you do, just speak from your heart. That's what people want to hear anyway." The school gym was packed with students and teachers. Tommy sat on the stage next to Principal Garcia. His dad and Aunt Sarah were in the front row, giving him thumbs up. Detective Miller was there too, in his police uniform. When it was Tommy's turn to speak, Principal Garcia introduced him. This young man showed remarkable courage when faced with a difficult situation. He reminds us all to trust our instincts and speak up when we know something isn't right. Tommy walked to the microphone. His hands were shaking a little, but he took a deep breath and began to speak. "6 months ago, my dad almost married someone who wasn't who she said she was. She and her friend were trying to steal my dad's money. I knew something was wrong because she acted different when my dad wasn't around." Tommy told his story simply, just as it had happened. The gym was completely quiet. Everyone was listening. "The hardest part wasn't finding out their plan," Tommy said. "It was deciding to speak up. I was afraid no one would believe me. I was afraid of ruining my dad's special day. But I was more afraid of what would happen if I stayed quiet." He looked at his dad in the front row. Sometimes adults don't listen to kids because they think we don't understand. But kids notice things. We see when people aren't being real. So if you ever feel like something is wrong, tell someone. Keep telling people until someone listens. When Tommy finished speaking, the gym erupted in applause. Some teachers were wiping tears from their eyes. His dad was smiling proudly. After the assembly, Detective Miller came up to Tommy and his dad. "I have some news," he said. "Cynthia and James both pleaded guilty yesterday. They'll be in jail for at least 5 years. "That's good news," Mark said. "Now they can't hurt anyone else." "There's more," Detective Miller continued. "Because of your story going public, 3 more victims came forward. These scammers had been doing this for years. You too helped stop them for good." Tommy felt a mix of happiness and sadness. He was glad they had helped others, but sad that so many people had been hurt by Cynthia and James. On the way home, they stopped at the cemetery to visit Tommy's mom's grave. They did this every month, bringing fresh flowers and telling her about their lives. Today, they had a lot to tell. "I wish Mom could have seen me give my speech," Tommy said as they placed flowers on her grave. "I think she did, in a way," his dad said softly. "You got your courage from her, you know. She never let anything stop her from doing what was right." That evening, they had a small party at home. Aunt Sarah came over with pizza. Uncle Joe brought a cake that said, "Congratulations, Tommy," in blue frosting. Even Zach and some other friends from school came to celebrate. As Tommy looked around at all the people who cared about him, he felt truly happy. The past 6 months had been hard sometimes. His dad still had sad days when he thought about being tricked. Tommy sometimes had nightmares about the wedding day. But they were healing together. Later, when everyone had gone home and Tommy was getting ready for bed, his dad came to his room. "I got a letter today," Mark said, sitting on the edge of Tommy's bed. "It's from a children's book publisher. They heard your story on the news and want us to write a book about it for other kids." Tommy's eyes widened. "A real book? With our story?" His dad nodded. "They think it could help other children know when to speak up and how to trust their feelings." "Can we do it?" Tommy asked excitedly. "I thought we could write it together," his dad suggested. "What do you think?" Tommy grinned. "I think that would be awesome." As his dad tucked him in and turned out the light, Tommy felt like their story was just beginning. What had started as the worst day of their lives had somehow turned into something good, something that could help others for years to come.